Welcome back to my channel, the Little Red Corvette, and I'm going to be doing a massive overview of everything that I have done to my car, and we're going to be discussing some of the pros and some of the cons about this car. So let's first start off with should you buy a C4 Corvette? So this particular style C4 was one of the longest manufactured versions of this car, and one of the appeals is that it's relatively inexpensive. Like, you can easily get a car like this for probably $10,000 or less. Certainly, I got mine for that. It might be a little bit more now, but they're very inexpensive. So it's if you want to buy something which is truly a sports car and not cost a lot of money, the Corvette C4 is a good choice. Now, how to buy this? Now, you can go buy your Corvette locally, but none of the dealerships I had around actually had, say, this, like a red convertible. So I did go online, and this particular Corvette came from New Jersey, and I live in Washington State, so it was a long ways away. And my hints for that is I did get it inspected. There's a company called AIM Certify, and they will come out and they will look at your car, and they will give you like a 100-point inspection, and they will take pictures of your car. And so I was actually a lot more confident in buying this car when they did that. And you can also get a 3 months, 3,000-mile warranty on the transmission and the engine. So that's one way to do it. And one other complication is shipping your car, and pretty much it'll cost about the same no matter who you ask. It's going to be from coast to coast is about $1,000. But they all actually get their bids from the same warehouse of shippers, so that's why it's not going to change that much. But in my case, the dealership did decide to also include shipping, which was a great deal for me. So let's start looking at all the things that I had to fix, starting from the nose all the way to the rear. So starting from the nose, I mean, the basic thing that was wrong with my car is that the paint was like all chipped off here in the front. It really made it look terrible. So I had to repaint this front bumper. So I have another video showing how I had to sand that off, put the primer on, and then try to blend in this bumper here. Another thing I did was that I added this little lettering here. I just put some, this is like colored duct tape, which allowed me to put the Corvette lettering on the top. Because here in Washington State, you have to have a front license plate. Otherwise, there's a plastic piece that goes over here, and these letters would have fit into that. But I don't have that. So next, let's look at our headlights. So this is one of the cool things about the Corvette, and that when the headlights come up, they go 360 on you. So that's just one of the really cool things about the car. And so that's like a pro of the car. But the con of that is that frequently the mechanisms for these flip-up headlights doesn't work very well. I'm going to go ahead and flip up the headlights. You can see how they go all the way around. That's very cool. But what happens is that they flip up, and then you hear a grinding sound, and that's because there's some plastic pieces that wear out. Now, they do have repair kits, and it's not too hard to fix these things. But basically, there's these 3 plastic pellets on the inside of these things, and that's what gets ground up and causes the problem. They do have brass replacement like gears, but typically you don't need that. So if that is a problem for you, I would advise just getting the 3 pellets and replacing those, and there are plenty of videos on YouTube showing you how to fix that problem. Another minor problem that I had is that the interior air conditioning controls have a temperature sensor underneath here, and that stopped working, so I had to replace it. I couldn't quite figure out how to get the old one out, so I just kind of taped it to the existing one. But that was something I had to fix, because otherwise the interior climate controls would always report it's 50 degrees outside no matter what temperature it was, and that kind of messes up your heating controls. So going on, I also had to repaint this side of the hood because I had my carport fall on my car, and it's scraped and gouged all the way through here, and it was difficult to get the since I didn't paint the entire hood, to get things to match. So it's not 100% perfect, but from a distance it looks okay. So let's go and take a look at the engine compartment. So one of the cool things, the pros, is that you've got this supercar hood that flips up, and that is just way cool. You can see the whole engine. You can look down and see the suspension components and everything in the car. And the one thing I did do was that I super cleaned the engine here, making sure that all the hoses were reconditioned and everything, and there's a super clean video you can watch. The thing is with this engine is that it's got this OptiSpark thing. It's like the distributor is actually somewhere underneath this, and if you get any water in it, it'll completely kill your car. So you cannot clean this car by just blasting it with water. You never want to do that. The other problem is you are advised not to take the car into a regular car wash, for once again, you can get water in the engine and it can damage and destroy your image, and apparently it's thousands of dollars to get that fixed. So that's kind of a con. You can't really safely take your car into a car wash, and you have to be super careful about how you clean your engine. It's basically just wipe it with a cloth and spray it where it needs it. And so another thing here is that we have the battery here, and in order to replace the battery you have to actually remove this entire panel, so it's not very easy. Now one of the cons of this car is because it's got all this electronic stuff running, is that it will drain its battery in relatively short order if you don't drive it every day. So it's that would be a con. You have to either keep driving it every day, or if you don't, you have to put it on a charger or disconnect the battery, because if you just let it sit, it will completely drain the battery in probably a few weeks, and then you'd have to keep on replacing your battery. Probably if you buy a car and it's been sitting for a while, probably the battery has been killed. So when you buy one of these things, probably the first things you're going to want to do, like I did, is to buy a new battery. So now another interesting thing is, in order to get the hood down, you have to pull this strut, and then you have to let the hood just drop. There you go. All right, let's go on. So now we're getting to the locks. So when I got my car, curiously enough, the locks didn't work. You couldn't even stick the key into the keyhole. So I had to get replacement door cylinders, and you can get that, but the hardest part is getting this door off. Getting this door handle off. There are videos on YouTube showing how to do that, but it's quite complicated to remove this panel and then get all the little latches and things off, and try to access the bolts that take this off. And I'll just make sure that they do have videos on that, but there is like a special wrench that has a ratcheting thing just on the end, and you do need to make sure to get one of those magnetic picker things, because that's the only way you'll be able to get the washers and things back on that. But the kits don't include the wafers, so you'll have to reuse the wafers, the wafer lock for the locks from your old lock. Another thing about the doors and the locking systems is the key is the key and the remote. So the key has this little pellet in it, which is a resistor. So you just can't go to your locksmith and just pick a key that looks like this. It has to match the resistance exactly, and you have to use a meter to read that, and it's going to be like 1 of 16 values. And then you have to order the key if your locksmith doesn't have it. So that's the difficulty about getting a duplicate key. Now the other problem is getting this remote. Now they don't make these remotes anymore, and you can't buy a third market aftermarket remote either. These remotes are extremely hard to get. The only place you can get them is on eBay, and they will only come up for auction, once every couple of months. And when you do, then they're going to cost you about, $400. So, but the difficulty is that you just can't get the remote. So if you get the car and it doesn't have a remote, just be aware it's going to be very difficult to get one of these. Now I was lucky. I found an auction on eBay where they were actually selling a new unused one of these remotes. And yeah, I was able to buy it for $400. But it took me like 6 months to actually get one, because every single time I saw an auction, it would just be sold immediately. But the reason why you want to have this is so that you have the passive arming and passive locking and unlocking. So when you walk away from the car, it will automatically lock. When you walk up to the car, it will automatically unlock. So that's great. But I've noticed that otherwise this is completely useless, because like if you actually press the button, it doesn't actually lock or unlock your car like you would expect. Really, the only good thing that this is good for is to either turn on or turn off the locking mode. And another disadvantage con is that you can't use this to locate your car. Like normally you could press the lock button and it'll go beep and you could find your car, but in this car it really doesn't do anything. So that really doesn't help you. So you can't use this remote to actually lock or unlock your car. It's just there so that when you get close to it, it'll unlock itself. And when you walk away, it's supposed to lock. And it goes beep when you lock. But the battery in here is always active. And whenever you shake the remote, it actually turns on. And so this battery here only lasts about maybe 6 months if you keep it in your pocket. Because every single time you move around, it transmits. So that's another con, in that, yeah, you may have to replace the battery. And if your battery dies on you and you don't know, then you're going to walk away from your car and it won't lock. So I don't exactly trust it. So whenever I walk away from my car, I have to stop and listen for the beep to make sure that it actually locked. Otherwise, it might not lock. So I'm not 100% trusting of this remote here. Okay, so let's go on the interior of the car and see what I did there. Okay, so here we are in the interior of the car, and one of the first things I